In 2016, I had wanted to fill in some of the gaps in my What Is There to Do in Ocala video. One of the big gaps was water recreation. Because I had this justifiable fear of gators, I never really got on the water in Ocala. Some of our early encounters on the Swamp Trail observation deck didn't really help me a whole lot. Stop doing that! Didn't really help me a whole lot in overcoming my fear, but eventually we did. Would you please stop doing that? We did finally get over that. I had decided that the Rainbow River would probably be the first river to try because it's a very cosmopolitan area with homes and everything and a lot of human activity, so I assumed that there would be fewer gators there, or at least fewer gators of the man-eating size. So we rented a canoe from the KP hole and just sort of canoed around the area a little bit. Me and my father had a great time. We didn't see a single gator, and we took a lot of great photos. So we started thinking about getting a canoe of our own. But I was still not comfortable with gators, so we looked at the sun dolphin, which put us higher up out of the water. We couldn't find one locally, so we ended up having to buy it online. The boat has been well worth its money as it has allowed us to experience things and capture images that we would not have been able to otherwise. By attaching an underwater camera to the front of the boat, we were able to capture this white manatee on the Silver River surrounded by garfish. Having the boat also allowed us to get out on Lake Weir while they were moving the Ma Barker home across the lake to its new place on Carney Island, where it will become a museum. So in 2016, we have been on the Silver River a lot, on the Ocala River, various lakes in the forest, and Lake Weir, but my fear of gators is still as strong as ever. I'm always weary in looking out for them. On a related note, I don't see us doing the Juniper Springs run anytime soon. I cannot figure out how they get around the gators in such a small body of water. Not all the water activities require a boat. Just a willingness to accept that you're swimming in the gator swimming pool, and a belief they're not there, or at least are not coming back while everybody splashes around like delicious wounded animals. But if you can get into that frame of mind, you can just chill in the 72-degree water while the little fish try to eat you. The blend of natural elements and the man-made elements in Juniper Springs still make it one of my favorites, but there are still two very close seconds. This was our first visit to Salt Springs, which had a certain 50s health spa vibe with the man-made construction, which was actually much newer. Looking at the springs vents from above, they don't look that deep, but some of them go beyond 30 feet. I didn't trust my swimming ability, so I tied my camera to a weight and dropped it into the vent to get this video from the bottom. We also visited Silver Glen Springs, which has been kept much more natural than the other two springs. It's a very large swimming area with a very large shallow area for smaller kids. And the main spring is very deep and wide, much like the Silver Springs. I think I'll give us all a break from my voice for a little bit as I do a music montage of the rest of our water-going clips before we get into the land adventures. So, as mentioned before in the water segment, getting into the Ocala National Forest was a major motivation for me in 2016. I have very little off road experience. I think my Jeep Cherokee has been put into four-wheel drive maybe 3 times just to do it. Still, we mainly stayed on the major forest roads like Forest Road 5. We did venture off onto this little dirt road going to Lake Lou, though, one time. It wasn't really that bad, but it had some sugar sand in places. We did try the high tension road one time and made it maybe 5 feet off the main road and realized that our stock Jeep wasn't really going to be built for that sort of thing. I thought the high tension road was named after the power lines that it ran under, but I think it's the tension of the driver driving over what had to be 6 feet deep of the softest sugar sand I've ever seen. We got out and walked it, and it was like walking on snow. Your feet just went sinking into it. We parked the Jeep on several places on Forest Road 5 and hiked some of the back roads, being weary of motorbikers and ATVers, but we didn't see anybody. We didn't really see much of anything in wildlife either. Our best wildlife trip in the Ocala National Forest was when we hiked the Florida Trail from the Pat's Island Trailhead off of Highway 19. We saw rabbits and runaway deer, and even saw this whole family of turkeys near the Hopkins Perry campground. We also saw the clearest set of bear prints that we've ever seen on this trail. I guess one of the things that surprised us about the Ocala National Forest is how much of it is not, well, forest. There's countless lakes in the forest, like this one at Mill Dam Lake, which has a beach and boat ramp and all sorts of amenities. And there are other lakes like Half Moon Lake, which is very natural. It has a boat ramp, but that is about it. And is just completely surrounded by the Ocala National Forest. Now, the 673 square miles of the Ocala National Forest does contain a lot of forest. And it also contains a lot of scrub, a very hostile region that produces blue jays that look like they were born on the wrong side of town. There are also many large prairies and adjoining wetlands in the Ocala National Forest. Now for the wildlife video bonanza. As mentioned on Ocala-Living, the majority of our wildlife sightings have been in the Silver Springs State Park. The park has a large variety and abundance of animals. And thanks to there not being any hunting in the park, the animals, while they're still skittish, they are probably not as defensive as the animals in the forest, whose main association of humans is with guns. The Silver Springs State Park is also the primary location where you can see these non-native members of the wildlife community. They are the ancestors of movie stars, monkeys who appeared in the Tarzan movies in the 1930s and 40s. They escaped and did what monkeys do. And generations later, we have several colonies of monkeys running around Silver Springs. Before the park became a state park, they used to feed the monkeys at various stations along the river so that the riverboat captains would know pretty much where the monkeys were. But now the monkeys are left to their own devices for food. Now, when we first started hiking the trails at what I call the Silver River State Park, or the one on Baseline, I had what I thought was a bear encounter. But now that I'm more familiar with the monkeys, I now realize that little brown patch of fur I saw running through the palmettos was actually one of them. They actually roam quite far off river, and one of the most special encounters we've had with them was off the bike trail just past the puddles. The whole colony was just playing in the woods there beside the trail. We have seen them several times in the high trees in the Ross camping loop. And we've heard two colonies sound like they were going in a huge fight off of the Fort King military trail. So they can be seen just about anywhere in there. They're free to go wherever they want. We live on the other side of Sharps Ferry Road from the park, and I'm somewhat surprised we've never seen monkeys come across the road. I have seen pictures of them along the Ocala River, though, so they do branch out outside the park. The bike trail has been the primary trail that we have used in the park. We've walked it about 2 to 3 times a week. We have seen a variety of wildlife on the trail, including being surprised by an otter that was way off the water. We have also seen wild boar and what looks like maybe domesticated pigs that have escaped and run with them, at least one large family group. For the new year, I'm hoping to come across a fox and a bobcat. I've seen one, but he ran away before I could get a picture. And of course, a bear. We came across our first deer in the big meadow on the bike trail. We have had a lot of encounters with the deers in the park. They're not the easiest thing to sneak up on with those big ears of theirs, and they usually don't stick around very long after they see you, but occasionally your curiosity will hold them in place. This young one is probably the closest deer that we have come to so far. We were on the swamp trail turning into the sinker trail. After he decided that we weren't a threat, he just went on about his business again. The same with this deer who had found something good to eat and he wasn't going to let us interrupt his meal. But this video clip here is more typical of our deer encounters. As soon as they realize we're here, off they go. We saw our biggest buck in the front of the park, in the area I call the tortured region because of all the scarred bark from controlled burning. We hiked the trail going around Carney Island several times last year. Didn't get a lot of wildlife pictures, but the turkeys, they call the place home. Turkeys and armadillos are in abundance in the park. I am thinking that armadillos must be a bit nearsighted. But he did eventually see me here. The last place we visited in this video is the Ocala Prairie. This was a very large public land that we had never heard about before.